Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Schmidt from Miles School, and I'm going to be reading you a story today called Baby Brains. And if you take a look at this picture, you can tell that this is probably going to be a silly story because this isn't something that babies would be doing. They wouldn't be out in outer space. You have heard some other stories this week about characters that are growing up and changing and learning how to do new things. Well, this character might be growing up a little too fast. Again, it's called Baby Brains. It's written by Simon James, and it says, "The smartest baby in the whole world." Let's find out about baby brains. In the months before Baby Brains was born, Mrs. Brains was very busy. She read out loud every night to the baby inside of her tummy. She played music and languages on headphones to her baby during the day. Mr. and Mrs. Brains wanted to make sure that their baby was going to be very smart. They even turned up the television when the news came on. They want the baby to hear the news. They think that it's going to make the baby very smart. Mr. and Mrs. Brains were very excited when their baby boy was born. It was a boy, and they called it their very own Baby Brains. When they brought him home from the hospital, Mrs. Brains laid him down in the brand new crib. "Sleep tight, Baby Brains," she whispered. The next morning, Mrs. Brains was on her way to get breakfast when she heard some strange noises in the living room. I wonder what it was. Do you think Baby Brains was out of his crib? There he is. Mrs. Brains opened the door to see her baby sitting on the sofa reading the morning newspaper. By afternoon, Baby Brains was fixing the car. "We certainly have a bright one here," said Mr. Brains. That evening, Baby Brains spoke his first words. "I'd like to go to school tomorrow," he said. Do you think this baby should be going to school? Let's find out if he goes. Oh, there he is. There's the baby at school. The next day, Baby Brains visited the local school. He sat down with the children and answered all the questions. The children were amazed. At the end of the afternoon, the teacher thanked Baby Brains. "I don't think I've ever learned so much in one day," she said. So it sounds like the baby was doing the lessons. On the way home, Baby Brains said he wanted to go to college and study medicine. After just 2 weeks, Baby Brains began working as a doctor at the local hospital. He was very popular with all of the staff and the patients. The staff means the other people that worked at the hospital with Baby Brains, and the patients are the people that he took care of. If he was very popular, that means everybody liked Baby Brains a lot. Word soon spread about the extraordinary Baby Brains. Everyone wanted to meet him. One night, some space scientists called. They asked if Baby Brains would like to help with their next space mission. Do you remember I showed you the cover of the book? Do you think he's going on a space mission? Let's find out. The following day, Mr. and Mrs. Brains and their baby traveled to the Space Center. After training hard just over the weekend, Baby Brains waved goodbye to Mr. and Mrs. Brains and blasted off into outer space. Everyone in the world held their breath as they watched Baby Brains take his first spacewalk. Tell us how you feel on this special occasion, radioed ground control. Baby Brains looked up at the vast starlit sky above him. He looked down at the vast starlit sky below him. He looked at the whole world in front of him and mumbled something. If he mumbled something, that means he said something, but it was too hard to understand what he said. I wonder what he said. Take a look at Baby Brains' face. I wonder what he might be saying. Do you think he might be a little scared in outer space? It says, "We can't quite hear you," radioed ground control. "Could you repeat that?" So they want him to say it again, whatever he said. Oh, look at Baby Brains. He says, "I want my mommy," wailed Baby Brains. That means he's crying. "That's enough," Mrs. Brains yelled to the space controller. "Bring my baby home right now." Baby Brains was flown home as quickly as possible. He felt very embarrassed as he stepped down from the hatch. He might have felt embarrassed because he was crying. But he shouldn't feel embarrassed. That's what babies are supposed to do. He was doing things that babies are not supposed to be doing. But through the crowd of photographers and cameramen, Mrs. Brains came running. "Our beautiful little baby," sighed Mrs. Brains as she lifted him high into the air. "Our brave little boy," said Mr. Brains. "Can we go home now?" asked Baby Brains. I think he wants to just go back to being a regular baby. At home, Mrs. Brains gave Baby Brains a warm bath, which made him feel a lot better. Mr. Brains tickled him, which made him laugh. Now this page looks like what babies should be doing. Not in outer space. As Mrs. Brains sang Baby Brains to sleep, they gently laid him down in the brand new crib. It was good to have their baby home again. "Our very own Baby Brains," whispered Mrs. Brains. And from that day on, Baby Brains spent most of his time at home doing the things that most babies do. Except that is on weekends. Let's see what he does on the weekends. Any guesses what he might do on the weekends? Look what he does. When he still liked to help out at the local hospital. And then this says, "The end." I hope you liked our story today, boys and girls.